G'day, Paul here up on Emu Mountain, and our meditation for today actually comes from the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus went up onto the mountain and all the crowds followed him. Not too many people followed me up here. In fact, I'm on my own. Just the Lord and I and the Word. But you find the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5, 6 and 7. In Matthew 5 he talks about the Beatitudes. The blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are the meek, blessed are those who hunger for righteousness, blessed are the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers and the persecuted. And he elaborates on all of that. Then he talks about salt and light, the fulfillment of the law, murder, adultery, divorce, oaths, eye for an eye, love your enemies. Many topics he talks about. And chapter 6, he talks about giving to the needy. There's a little drone flying around above me here somewhere, so maybe there are some more people listening. Giving to the needy, prayer, and the Lord's Prayer in chapter 6 talks about fasting, treasures in heaven and not worrying. Chapter 7 he talks about judging others, ask, seek and knock, the narrow and wide gates, the true and false prophets and the true and false disciples. So there's lots of information that he gave out to the crowd that gathered around him on the mountain. But usually in any sermon the preacher keeps his best until last. And that's what Jesus does. He talks about the wise and the foolish builders. And from verse 24 it says this: therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like the wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on a rock. And I'm sitting on a rock here now, and if you built a house on this, it would last a long time. It certainly wouldn't wash away. But then he says in verse 26, but everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority, and not as the teachers of the law. So basically the wise man and the foolish man building their houses on the rock or the sand are those who hear these words of Jesus and put them into practice. If you get into the Word and the Word gets into you, you're going to be a wise person. And you'll be like the man who built his house on a rock. But if you don't even open the Word and you don't listen to his words and you don't put them into practice, you'll be like the foolish man who built his house on the sand and it came crumbling down in a mighty crash when the rain and the wind came against it. So if you want to withstand the pressures of the storms of life, then get into the Word and get the Word into you. It's all in the Bible. Listen to what Jesus is saying and put these words into practice. Have a great day as we watch the sun go down here on Emu Mountain on the Sunshine Coast, Queensland, Australia. See you later. You have a good night.